Seejeanty back at it again, and man, it's been quite some time since I've done really what Untitled, but it's something I've always enjoyed doing, and glad to be doing it one more time, because this was the series where I broke down in detail nuances, processes, experiences that you, the diaspora person who's watching, who's looking to re-engage in the country, should know about and need to win, right? And I want to pass my experience to you so you could win, right? But here's the thing, I don't pass that experience until I personally experience it. And I've had one heck of an experience getting my Société Anonyme, the corporate entity that exists here in Haiti, and it's necessary that I pass the experience on to you, because it's one thing in the past I've shared the resources, the step-by-step processes, but I've never completed and went to the finish line. And as I'm talking to you now, I've completed and went down to the finish line. So stay tuned to this episode. We're gonna get into the nitty-gritty. We're back at it again. So first off, right, I gotta give you guys a little bit of warning if you guys hear it in the mic. There's a rainstorm happening outside, so just FYI if you guys hear it, that's what's going on, right? So, man, my process, it took, you ready guys? Over a year and a half to get my SA, right? A year and a half. Well, a process that on paper should take no more than 3 months. It took me a year and a half to get to the finish line. And quite frankly, I'm gonna jump right into the very first pro tip that I can give you as relates to this process. And that is, you have to, get lucky with a good lawyer, right? Because more likely than not, you're not gonna get a good lawyer, right? And here's the reality when it comes to lawyers in Haiti, all right? The reality in lawyers in Haiti is, I'll be honest guys, there is no such thing as lawyers in Haiti, right? There is no such thing, because legally, the stalwart of legal documentation in this country are notaries. In America, I know notaries just have really almost a symbolic role. You come in, depending, very few instances that actually require it, right? And it's just a cherry on top in many processes, right? But in Haiti, everything needs to be notarized, and nothing is really legal without passing through a notary at some point. To the point where, in fact, notaries are basically the lawyer, especially in the provinces. Folks will have notaries represent them on the sell side or the buy side, and they really, because let me say it differently. In the U.S., a lawyer can draft a contract and give it to you, and you give it to another party, and both folks sign it, and that's it, and it's enforceable by law. Whereas in Haiti, quite frankly, unless a notary has authorized a contract, it really is meaningless, right? As relates to the Société Anonyme, a good chunk of that process is handled by the notary, right? Now, the Société Anonyme requires that you have an attorney, right, represent you. But ironically, the brunt of the work that is done is through the notary. Now, looking through my computer here, and I have all the steps here, and I'm going to include the steps in a link below, but also on the screen, somewhere around here, as I'm talking to you and explaining this process to you, you'll see it. And it's really quick to kind of go through what the process is. But these steps pertain specifically to really the first phase of getting your business registered, which is getting the actual entity in existence, right? The next phase is getting the entity a bank account. That's phase 2, right? But to get phase 1, first, a lawyer drafts the company statutes, right? And that's really where the lawyer has the most purpose, right? But then, in the next step, as I mentioned, the notary has a very big role in all this, notarizing the company deeds and articles of association, right? And they charge a fee for that, right? Next step then, and really the biggest expensive piece of registering your business is going to the national bank and depositing the minimum for the industry that you're going into. And for the most industries, it's 100,000 good. That's about $800, right, as of right now, right? And there was a time that was closer to $1,500, but the exchange rate has really changed since really the last time I did this document. And after that, you have to go to the Minister of Commerce, right, and get authorization for the Administration of Commerce, right? And there's a few other steps within there. Within the Minister of Commerce, and you pay, registration for that, and there's fees, and the fees total 21,000 good, right? And then from there, of course, from the MC, you go the next step, which is the DGI, the tax office, and you register. That's where you get your tax ID from the tax office, and you pay fees associated with that. And the fees really that's not a fixed fee. It's depending on ultimately the industry that you're in and the amount of initial capital you had to put in. But for most industries, it's not that much. It's about 2,000 or so good that you need to pay. And then finally, there's just small bookkeeping things you have to do. You have to get official commercial books that always have to sit in your office. I've heard stories where even if you don't use it, you have to have the commercial books somewhere in your administrative place. Otherwise, you may get dinged during an audit, right? And there's other stuff you have to do. For example, notify labor ministry, how many employees, if you already started, how much you're going to hire. So you can start paying employer tax on that, OFATMA as well. All these, different organizations, you have to be informed that you exist and how many employees are working at your particular place. Now, in terms of the hard stop, in terms of what matters, right, to you, is getting past the tax office, and then getting once you're finished, getting it published in the Le Moniteur, right? Getting it published in the Le Moniteur is really a national news paper in Haiti for all official state business, and you registering your company is official state business. Until it gets published there, then it really doesn't exist, right? And but once you get there, then that's it. That's the finish line. You are officially you officially have your entity, and you're registered. Now that whole process, as I mentioned, can take up to 3 months on paper. Now, where can this process go wrong? As I mentioned, the notary has incredible sway, but because there's so many agencies a part of this, as I just mentioned, as go to the Minister of Commerce, as go to the tax office, right? And where it goes wrong is when your lawyer can't move it forward based off of the relationships they have. Right, because Haiti is very much based on relationships and who the lawyer knows, and ultimately too, it's also based off who the notary knows too. If a notary doesn't have a good face in the particularly the tax office for different reasons, their documents will go slowly or not at all. Right, and same thing with the lawyer. The lawyer is the person going in often to follow up, to make sure, see where things are. So the combination of those two people and their level of influence and capacity to move the ball forward in a system that is, quite frankly, I'm not even gonna hide it, guys. I'm not gonna beat around the bush, guys. It's a very corrupt and bureaucratical system that exists here in this country. And if your lawyer and the notary doesn't know how to navigate, that polluted water, right? Unfortunately, the person who's going to pay the cost is you, right? And it happened to me that I paid $3,000, right? Because you're probably wondering, what is the usual cost? That's the bottom tier of cost, right? It will cost you $3,000 just to get to, and that's US, by the way, to get to that point where your SA is supposed to be published. And you typically pay upfront, for that amount. You pay, or at least 80-90% upfront, which the lawyer turns around and then uses to get that process going, right? And I lost it because ultimately that lawyer that I had, right, wasn't able to get to the finish line. Now you might wonder, who's the lawyer? Between you and me, she's been on this program, fortunately, but I'm not going to be one to specifically call her out, but I'm sure you can do your research real quick and find out who it was. Obviously, I'm not recommending that lawyer for anything going forward, right? But you know, I don't fault her necessarily because I see what the system is. And the system is one that is very much based on personality and personal connection of the peoples and players involved, and quite frankly, a little bit of luck. Because you know, I know during one period of time, trying to get through pay lock, and the high amount of insecurity, there was one signature that was supposed to happen from a person that lived in Kafou, couldn't get to work to the tax office where they were located in central Port-au-Prince area, and it languished there for quite some time now. Should have been a secondary person who could have signed? Maybe that the lawyer was just telling me that story. Possible. Now, the next time I paid $3,000, and I had to pay another $3,000. It went through, and I was able to get it done. Are you ready for this? In a month and a half, right? In a month and a half, I was able to get my Société Anonyme, right? And it was through an attorney, but that attorney had incredibly strong relationships within the MCE and had incredibly strong relationships with the notary, and that notary had incredibly strong relationships with the tax office of which we registered the business. Again, relationships. That's the cheat code in Haiti, right? You don't come to Haiti without first taking time to build, find, and maturize, I'll make that a word, relationships. And so that's how I was able to get it through and be able to talk to you right now about the experience that I had, right? And again, the rain is popping up here, so if it's coming through the mic, excuse me. Okay? So that's part one, really. That's really part one. Part one is the story of being careful with the lawyer you choose. And all lawyers will tell you, yeah, they can get it done. They'll tell you the good words. Really the best way to find someone who's going to get you to the finish line is by talking to your friends, talking to other business owners, talk to other people who actually got their SA and ask them, hey, which lawyer did you use? Would you recommend them? How quickly they were able to get you it? Can you provide me the connection? Because usually if you just entered their office, not knowing you from Bob to Joe, they'll treat you a certain way versus if they know someone who they've taken care of in the past, brought them in, they'll treat you in a much different way, right? And so my recommendation is ask around to those who successfully got their SA and ask them who did they use and would you recommend. And get about 5, 6, 7 different recommendations if possible. And if you hear a lawyer's name come up once or twice or 3 times during that process, well, you should be able to sleep better at night because that lawyer can actually get it done. But again, I highly, highly advise you to be careful of the lawyer you choose because the vast majority, 99% of attorneys in Haiti are full of expletive, are full of it, right? And I can't advise you enough to move through any legal process in Haiti by asking around to those who experienced a process like that in the past and who they can recommend who got them out of it. Period, point blank. There's no way else forward. All right, part 2. Part 2 now is the part relating to opening your bank account. I'll put something on screen that has some of the processes related to getting that open, but it's really part 2 because, yeah, you just spent $3,000 or more in terms of getting your SA to exist. Now the next part is paying some more money to get additional documentation that the bank's going to need to open your bank account, right? So number 1, you're going to need your PATENTE. Your PATENTE is basically authorization from the state that is your business certificate, right? That says you're current with your taxes for the tax year and you can operate during that tax year, right? Secondly, you're going to need your, from the MC gives it a professional identification card for the business. you're going to need that. You're going to need a material fiscal, which is basically the printed out version of your tax ID number. And then you're going to need documentation that spells out who can sign, right? Who has the power to sign checks and authorize transactions on behalf of the business, right? And there's other nuances related to that, because those people who have that authorization, you got to get them addresses and verify their address. And that kind of can be tricky, because a lot of Haitians don't, their living situation is, iffy, right? And so, to get formal documentation is tricky. Usually you have to have maybe a cell phone bill. Most Haitians just pay on as they go, so don't have a formal bill, as like we do, that we pay monthly. But there's ways around it, and the bank will tell you what they accept. Each bank will accept something different. But typically the best way to go about it is to create a lease agreement and have that lease agreement be signed, right? Even if it's someone who's living with their mother or father, create a lease agreement that says, hey, they're living here, they're paying some stipulated amount of rent, right? That's probably the best sure way to go in many situations, in many circumstances, right? Getting their lease agreement to provide, right? But this process is tricky because what's really funny in Haitian banks is the concept of digital signatures don't exist. I know in America, we can just do an X and O and move on with our day, or scribble something on a piece of paper and that's your signature. In Haiti, they'll give you 6 bank signed cards, and they each have to be exactly the same. If there's even a slight difference in the way you put your C or your J or your Y or whatever it is, they're going to return that card, and they're going to say, we need another signature, right? And you'll see what I mean when you try to do it. I mean, it's something that's out this world in terms of how particular they are when it comes to signatures, right? Beyond that, just expect, you're not going to do it in one sitting. I know in America, I was able to get my account literally in 15 minutes. I was in and out. I got my bank account for my business. I was out. I got a debit card within that week. I applied for a credit card right then and there, and I was on my way, right? I was in that bank for over 2 hours, and still they were calling me, telling me I had to come back. There were some things I had to re-sign. There were some signatures that had to be redone, and it was a process, right? But once you get that bank account open, you are smooth coasting. You are official in Haiti, and you can do everything you do, from payroll to pay people to receive money to officially function. Officially, you can do it, right? So you can have actual, banking access, right? But my recommendation are some of the smaller, newer banks that exist in Haiti. Capital Bank is a smaller bank. BUH is a smaller bank. BUH, Banque Union Haitien, is a smaller bank. The Seejeanty banks, the Uni banks, they have such long lines. Like even, imagine you having to stand in line, and every time you have to go do anything, you have to stand in line for an hour, 2 hours. Imagine you have a lot of employees, and for them to cash their check or take money out, if you even do a direct deposit, they have to go to the bank to take the money out. They have to be in line for 2-3 hours. I'm not kidding, 2-3 hours. And that's one of the problems with Uni Bank and Seejeanty Bank in particular. Though there's ways to get around it if you're sophisticated enough. If you can do online banking, there's some ways to remove the amount of time you spend in a bank, but those larger banks. But still, that 1 or 2 times you actually have to go in a year to a bank, to a bank teller or to do something, you have to stand in line. So some of the smaller banks, because they're newer, they don't have as much clientele. That's actually a good thing. It allows you to be in and out in most cases at those smaller banks. Minimum deposits for banks are typically, it ranges from usually a few $100s to a few $100s typically. Something to realize is that most banks allow you to open up USD or good accounts, so USD and good. And typically I recommend you have both USD and good, because you're going to need both. You typically want to hold your money in dollars because the depreciation of the currency is so phenomenal in this country. You do not want to hold your any amount of revenue even over a day in good because of that depreciation. Unless you have a lot of movement back and forth in good, you lose money if you're just changing it back and forth willy-nilly. But if you have an amount of money that you know you're going to be sticking in your account for a while, keep a good chunk of that in dollars, right? And the rest can be in good. I hope someday I can make an update to the video where that's the inverse, right? When our country is really, moving the way it's supposed to. But for now, you don't want to keep. You want to have both USD and good, and you want to keep your amount of money in dollars. And especially you need dollars because when you do a transfer from your U.S. bank account, typically to Haiti, it needs to go to a USD account. So even if you're a true patriot and want to keep your money in good no matter what, to receive your wires, you need a USD account waiting for you, right? And even to extend your wires out, right? I would recommend having multiple people to sign, at least 3 people to sign. Say if you're traveling and there's an expense that needs to happen, you get 2 people you trust, and you have them, be able to sign by notifying you. When I say sign checks or execute transactions online. At the very least, if you're in the country for the most part, and you're generally available, and you just want that level of control, I suppose, you ensure that at least 2 people have the power to sign, and it must have 2 signatures. Even in the case of 3 people, out of 3 people, there must be at least 2 signatures, right, to ensure that. Reduce the chance of risk, right? Because imagine you have tens of thousands of dollars in your account. You have to ensure that no transaction happen without, there's checks and balances in place, right? So however you set those checks and balances up, but the best way is to ensure 2 people must sign on a check, must sign on, or must go log into their account and approve the transaction, right? If it's an online transaction. And really that's the run of it. I try to keep this video short, condensed, to the point, right? Where the pain points were for me. I'm sure you can easily do research on your own time to get to any of the more generic stuff. I just wanted this to be an account of what I experienced to get my account online. It wasn't easy. Haiti is ranked one of the hardest places to register your business, to start a business up, and for good reason. The fact that it took me effectively $6,000, right? When you add the first amount of $3,000 I paid, right, and you add up the second, $6,000, and it cost me over a year and a half when I count the first chunk and then the second chunk, over a year and a half, right? I mean, just to incorporate a business where right across on the same island, I can incorporate a business in about a day, and I believe somewhere around 15, 20, 30 bucks. It's nothing to incorporate your business in DR. In America, it took me 15 minutes. That's it. 15 minutes and about $100 to incorporate my business in America, right? So, Haiti being as difficult as it is, it's mind-blowing, especially there is no progression in any country without business being able to be easy, to be facilitated, to be encouraged, right? But it's done, and I'm on the other side. I'm sharing it with you guys, so you guys can be successful. There can be more business in the country, so eventually there can be change that can happen. Guys, if you like what we got going on here, if you like the information we share, the images we provide, you're not seeing it, you may not be seeing it anywhere else on the internets, please subscribe, hit that button, hit that like, share this video. Any business person that you know who's been stuck on that process, please share this video with them. Have them watch it. They'll appreciate it, believe me. And make sure, subscribe yourself, hit that notification button. We drop videos every week. That's what we're about here. And if it's your first time here, I appreciate you. And if you're a long time person, I appreciate you a long time. Guys, we'll be back at it again when we're back at it again. Peace.